Welcome to the Political Panel, and today something different. We're having an informal panel with the 5 candidates running to represent the people in the federal riding of Fredericton. And joining me in no particular order are Keith Ashfield, running for the Conservatives, Randy McKean, running for the Liberals, Jesse Travis, running for the NDP, Louise Como is running for the Green Party, and Adam Scott Ness is an independent candidate. Welcome to you all. Thanks for taking time out of your busy days. I know you're all busy campaigning, so I appreciate the fact that you took the time to be here. I want to start with a question that you take wherever you want to go. And the question is, the single most effective issue that you have in terms of telling the voters, pick me, I want to be your MP. Single most effective issue. Who wants to start there?
Well, I can tell you what I'm hearing at the doors, and initially it was the why are we having an election, and people were fairly upset about that, and then it quickly turned to jobs and the economy, and depending where you are in the riding. But the last couple of days, the issue has become the election itself, which is sort of a strange thing to see happen. I've never seen this before in my political career. So.
What do you mean, Keith?
Well, it's just the shifting polls. They're different from day to day, and people are talking about the election, not so much about the issues of the election, which is very strange.
Okay. Randy, what's the single biggest issue for you?
The single biggest issue for me is just the way government runs and the way politics is being conducted. The partisanship, the gamesmanship, all parties, I think, have been guilty of this over the last several decades. And people are just getting the sense that politicians aren't paying any attention to them. They're not paying attention to the bread and butter issues, the fact that people are struggling. They're struggling to put food on the table, roof over their heads. And certainly that's why I got into this, is because I've been disillusioned by the system, by the process. We just got to find a way to have politicians look after our best interests and not their own and that of their friends. So, unless you're making decisions for the right reasons, odds are you're going to end up making bad decisions. So that's not only what I'm feeling, but it's also what I'm getting at the door as well. People just feel that they've been disenfranchised, that people aren't paying attention, the politicians are not paying attention to them. Jesse,
what's the biggest issue for you?
I have to agree with Keith. When we started the election, it was, Stephen Harper has called this election, and basically because he lost the vote, but it was intentional. He forced the other parties into a position that they couldn't back away from. He wanted the election and he got it. But I also have to agree with Randy that there's this other issue that people are at the door looking at us and saying we're tired of the partisanship. That's why I actually wanted to speak directly to Randy this morning. Michael Ignatieff in this campaign has said, in his Rise Up speech in Sudbury, Ontario on April 15th, said clearly, this is not about partisanship. This goes beyond that. It's not about me, which is not about Michael Ignatieff. It's not about the Liberal Party. It's about the country we love. This is what Michael Ignatieff says. So I think that when we look at what's happening right now, it's clear that yes, Canadians need to make a choice about who can replace Stephen Harper. And I think it's clear that Canadians are choosing Jack Layton as the best man to replace Stephen Harper. Even the National Post, as recent as yesterday, said, and let me read the headline for you, Layton would make best PM, voters say. This was one of the headlines of the National Post. We've seen the polls. And Randy, I respect you as an independent thinker who will put Fredericton and Canada before the interest of any party. But these are the closing hours of a campaign that is very important to this community and very important to this country. And I'm asking you to make sure that Stephen Harper is defeated. I'm asking you to stand with me, Randy, and call on your supporters to support Jack Layton's team on Monday. And if you make this choice, we can build a country. We can build a country.
Okay, Louise, I'm going to come to you, and Adam, I'm going to come to you in a sec. But I just want to, if you don't mind, with your indulgence, oddly enough, Randy and Keith want to respond to that. Randy, go ahead.
I mean, I'm not sure what Jesse's referring to. As far as I know, no votes have been counted as yet. We had an excellent turnout at the advanced polls, and I expect we're going to have an excellent turnout on Monday. And certainly, I'm not, as you probably know, Terry, I'm not a big believer in polls, and particularly in this day and age when the polls don't include cell phones and so on and so forth. So whatever surge, I guess, that Jesse's imagining, or anybody that's tossing their... I've seen no evidence of it whatsoever, certainly in the people that I've been seeing, and I've been seeing them at doors, and I've also been seeing them at events, and it's just simply not happening. So, I'd welcome your support, Jesse, and I think that together we would have a good chance of holding this riding. But I have a pretty good sense and a pretty good feeling that the reaction that we're getting is very good. There is certainly a movement out there to get rid of Mr. Harper.
Okay, let me just bring that over to Keith.
Yeah,
Randy.
sure.
Well, look, it's not what I'm hearing at the doors for sure. It's been very positive. I think the advance polls were great, and the numbers that turned out. I think all parties have worked very hard to get the vote out in the advance polls too, and that's important. But I have to disagree with Jesse. He referred to the Globe and Mail article yesterday. I wonder if he looked at the Globe and Mail this morning, which
National Post.
the Globe and Mail this morning said that Harper was hands down the best person to lead the country, especially through the. And I'm summarizing here, but anyway, that's what the article says. Take a look at that. I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah, well,
Okay, Louise, go
Louise,
ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
So I really want to run with this theme, having worked in Ottawa for a long
Yeah,
time.
go
I know
ahead.
Jack very well. When Jack became leader, he had one strategy in mind, and that was to destroy the Liberals. And that was in 2005 right through to 2006. I saw how he's built that strategy over time, and he's showing some success, okay? So I want to go right in on that theme. Why are people coming to Greens in the context of what's happening in the election? And it's for two reasons. One is our position on true democracy and our commitment to fight for proportional representation and to fight for every vote and ensure that it counts in the House. And that's something Jack has spoken to. The other parties have not, but he also needs to be pushed. And on the second piece that they come to us for, it's the environment. And a party that actually has as its operating framework principle that doesn't see trade-offs between social, economic, and environmental goals. What I would argue is that I'm actually quite excited to see the shift. I think Ignatieff made an enormous error in the debates by being so arrogant as to say the NDP would never form a government. Canadians are smart enough to make their own decisions. I think it's very exciting. Having said that, and because I know Jack, I really, really think that the best outcome would be to have Greens in the House, because Jack is also positioning for political power, and he needs to be reminded and pushed hard on the environment. His heart's in the right place, but he has dropped the environment too many times for political positioning, and I think Greens are pretty essential to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Okay, I'll come back to that theme in just a second, but I want to give Adam, Scott, and Ness the chance to.
For sure.
The biggest issue that you see in the riding. Let me move your mic up there.
Appreciate that. For me, the biggest issue in this riding is leadership by example. We could be called the paycheck-to-paycheck province right now, if you will. I have a lot of colleagues that work in contact centers and many other
call centers? Is that what people? Okay,
For sure.
Phoning. All right.
Yeah, and recently we've seen a lot of our good-paying jobs in that industry here leave this area. That's a problem. Outsourcing is a large problem. In this riding, if you want to work in this industry, you have to do the work of 4 people that could be in India. It's hard to compete on those economic standings here.
Right.
So we need leadership by example. When I watched Parliament being prorogued, and this election could have been called over that, or many other things, many times, what I seen was people getting paid and taking additional time off. That's a problem.
People being paid and taking additional time off.
Our
where?
politicians.
Oh, okay.
Our elected representatives.
Okay.
So I would like to see leadership by example, and one of the things that I would like to see leadership and example in would be parliamentary reform. We have the technology now. We have the capability to vote early and vote often, and for a lot less than $300 million, and it can be secure. We have, in New Brunswick, so many smart, intellectual, information technology people. There is no reason that this riding couldn't lead the way for parliamentary reform in Canada and then the world. We're seeing a lot of problems in the world today, guys. We got to start addressing the root causes of these. Throwing money at problems, we need to address the problems and use time to fix it.
Let me just go ahead, Randy.
I just wanted to make a point, Terry, that it's unfortunate that our first-past-the-post system has led to this kind of system. And I know that the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party have never embraced the idea of proportional representation. I personally do. And if I'm successful in getting into caucus, I'll be pushing very hard for that, because it is unfortunate that people are faced with this kind of decision as to whether they have to vote strategically. And you know, again, the first past the post system was designed for two parties. We now have 5 parties in this country, and so that, you know, people do face a difficult choice, and I don't think it should be that way. Some form, I'm not sure what the exact form would be, but we do need some form of proportional representation. We don't have that, so people are faced with that decision. But certainly, it's a personal choice, and I would never presume to tell anybody, you know, how they should vote. I would like to see a system, though, where nobody feels that they're wasting a vote.
Okay, let me put this on the table. Just when you're at the market and you're talking to people in Fredericton who are there just to do their Saturday shopping and just to find out what the buzz is in the city, aside from what the parties say the issues are, tell me, what is your view of what the real issues are for, you know, the ordinary New Brunswicker who's making $50,000 or less a year? What matters to them most? What do they want you to do as their MP? Keith.
Well, look, and you say regardless of what the parties say, but what our party is hearing is that people want lower taxes. They want more money in their pockets. They want more money to be able to spend on their families. And certainly I hear that all the time. And I think we have a pretty good record in that area. We're putting about $3,000 a year right now for an average family of 4, putting $3,000 a year back in their pockets that they didn't receive before. And that's important. You know, let's let people make their decisions. Let them decide where they want to spend their money. It's not government's business. So if we can have lower taxes and provide them with more income in their pockets, I think that's the way it should be.
Jesse, what are you hearing? What is the issue that matters to those people in that income bracket?
I think, you know, the economy is very important in this region. You know, we've seen a lot of people who are I guess, emigrating out of Canada, or not out of Canada, sorry, out of New Brunswick in search of jobs in other parts of the country, in Ontario or out west. Job creation has been very important. The economy of the region is important. But I think that the Conservatives, there's this myth out there, right, that the Conservatives try to create, that they're good for the economy, right, that they've, you know, because of their good leadership through this election, you know, we have achieved economic stability. And Randy and I have both pointed out that this isn't the case. You know, our economic stability is based on our regulated financial sector. And we can't forget that the Conservative government destroyed the surplus that was left to us by the previous government, right? So we
A liberal government.
Albeit, yes, a liberal government, but under a very different leader than Michael Ignatieff. And what we're looking at right now is a situation in this country where we do need job creation, but we have the Conservatives who are wasting money on corporate tax giveaways that are indiscriminate, where we want to target corporations with job creation tax credits. So you reward companies that perform well. You know, we need to end corporate welfare. This isn't a communist country. We're capitalists. You know, this is a free market economy. You know, job creation should be rewarded. Being a successful company should be rewarded. We shouldn't just give money to multinationals who take the money and invest it elsewhere. That should be invested
Keith
here
wants
in
to
jobs.
respond to that. And
Well, look, in terms of the economy and job creation, we just went through the worst recessions probably since the last recession. And it's in terms of the jobs that were created, we had lost over 450,000 jobs during that period. And from June of 2009 to now, we've created 480,000 jobs. That's significant. And why? Because people are investing in their companies and are investing in employees. That's the important part of it. Now, some would say that they're part-time jobs, but just last month, in the month of March, of the 480,000 jobs that were there, some of them were part-time, 91,000 of those were converted to full-time jobs. So our plan is working. It's definitely working. In terms of a low-tax program, you say corporate welfare. It's not corporate welfare. These companies invest back into their companies, and those investments create more jobs.
Okay.
That's the long and short of it.
Louise, go ahead.
That's not what's happening. They're putting the money in cash. They're not investing in productivity. They're not hiring people. They're putting the money in cash. And the Conservative government put money into the Economic Action Plan because the opposition made you do it. That was not Stephen Harper's inclination. But what I hear at the door is We want our kids to be able to stay here. We don't want our kids to have to leave home. From how many generations of New Brunswickers? I mean, my own father left in the 50s from northern New Brunswick to go to Toronto to build the subway system. When I go to Bathurst, you stand there and the families all line up at the fence watching their fathers go to Fort McMurray. I mean, how many generations have to go? So from a Green Party perspective, we really respond to that. We really believe in local economic development. We really believe in investing in smaller scale, more local, regional development. We really believe in putting people back on the farm, back in the woods, back in the boats. Those are, to us, good jobs. We really see a need to invest in our to make the links between our educational infrastructure and what people want to do here. And we've got quite a good platform in terms of what we would do to encourage folks to stay in school and so on.
Right.
But we want that education to be targeted towards sustainable economic development so that we become more resilient and more able to face the environmental challenges that are coming our way. From my perspective, I'm very concerned about Fredericton as a community. It's vulnerable from the effects of climate change. If you think flooding is something you don't like, get used to it. It's going to get worse. The investments that have been made in infrastructure, unfortunately, have not made us more climate resilient, and we are more and more vulnerable if we don't start to really make those investments. And those are the kinds of things that concern the Green Party and that we hear when we talk to people.
Adam, we're talking about economic development, economic policy. What do you want to add?
I'd like to ask, can you name me one government that has ever been in power that has not been embroiled in a scandal? One. In the history of this country. I can't think of any from the history that I've gone.
I'm sure there are some.
I haven't found any. Right back from the beginning, even during the Great Railroad.
What are you defining as scandal?
Diversion of public funds for not public benefit. For instance, in New Brunswick locally, you can look at the whole reason that we don't have a Liberal government here in the province of New Brunswick right now. We had a rather large uprising over what we've seen going on. Prior to that, you had NB Tel for local. NB Coal, which was in Chipman, was gone.
So you're talking about not giving companies money?
No, I'm talking about not giving people money, not giving people the ability to create. The real entrepreneurs of this place is people themselves. And if they had the wherewithal to be able to apply their knowledge without being taxed additionally on it, they'd be able to build whatever they want, you know. We have so much knowledge that we are being held back from using. And it's ridiculous. I don't know why that we are not using all the materials that we have in this province to develop this province. We want to be self-sufficient. We've got everything in this province we need to be self-sufficient. We've got everything we need in this country to be self-sufficient. We hear this debt management problem that we have in the country. We hear this debt management problem we have in the province. Who do we owe all this money to? What did I do to owe all this money? What did the kids that I may have in the future do to owe all this money? To who? Why are we being held accountable for this?
Okay.
Could I just jump in on the economic front, Terry?
Sure.
Again, Keith raised the point, which he and Mr. Harper and the Conservatives often do. They like to take credit for things that they didn't do and pass on the blame for things that they did. You know, Jesse pointed out that in fact the reason that Canada weathered the recession so well was because of its banking system, because of its banking regulation. So they certainly can't take credit for that. Louise has pointed out that the stimulus package was only done. In fact, the Conservatives tried to prorogue Parliament. They did prorogue Parliament, and they didn't do that until they were urged to by the opposition. And even then, I think I'm not as good at numbers as Keith is because he likes to throw out all the spending numbers, but I think even in that stimulus package, $27 million or thereabouts was spent on advertising. It wasn't going to communities. It wasn't going to create jobs. It was being spent taxpayers' dollars to tell us how their taxpayers' dollars were being spent. Then there was the signs in which municipalities and provinces had to cough up a third so that they could put these signs, and they spent money tracking to make sure these signs went up on every project. So, you know, it just simply doesn't wash. Just because, the Conservatives say the same things over and over and over and over again doesn't make it fact.
Okay, let me just ask you a philosophical question that touches on what we're all talking about here. The big push now seems to be, in Canada, in North America, around the world, cut the corporate tax rate. Cutting the corporate tax rate will lead to more jobs and stimulating the economy. Cutting personal income tax is what we should be doing because it gives people more money to spend. So is there another view that says that maybe taxation is a good thing, that maybe taxation contributes to pillars in our society that are important?
Well, I'd certainly say that that's the case, but I think there's room for adjustments. And so what we have is a pretty significant proposal for what we call ecological fiscal reform, where you basically are tax shifting, right? We want to start moving the tax system so that you're putting taxes on the things that you don't want, like pollution of all kinds, particularly on carbon and toxics and so on that affect people's health. And you're reducing taxes in areas that you want to see increase. We want people to work. We want to actually use more human labor. So we would reduce payroll and income taxes. I actually am glad that you raised that question around, are taxes always bad? When we only focus on, take taxes away, lower them so people can spend and make their own decisions, it actually makes us selfish. And we do have collective obligations and responsibilities to each other as a society, and those taxes are appropriately raised and spent. But we do need to look at where our taxes are going. We would eliminate subsidies to all the, the fossil fuel sector, nuclear, and so on. We wouldn't reduce corporate taxes as per the schedule. We think that, in fact, at 19% is just where it should be. But we would see small business taxes lowered so that would be encouraged in terms of society. So tax shifting, I think, is appropriate. And there is a role for taxation, and there's a role for us to think about ourselves as individuals, and a role for us to think about how we participate in society and in our communities.
Okay, Jesse, and then Adam.
Look, it isn't that cutting taxes or offering tax breaks is bad. It's that it's the blunt approach of the Harper government that's bad, right? It's indiscriminate, it's untargeted, and it's unimaginative, right? So what they've done is they've just cut them across the board. Well, in the 1990s, this worked, right? Companies reinvested that kind of capital into job making, but now because of the way the technology infrastructure has advanced, companies are looking at leaner organizations. We're starting to see that money isn't being reinvested in job creation. That's why we want to make sure that, yes, good corporate citizens are rewarded for creating jobs in communities, but they're rewarded with tax breaks when they've done that. They're rewarded with tax credits when that happens, not just out of pocket, giving it to them for no reason, which is what the Conservatives plan to do. And again, this is going to something like less than 5% of the top companies in Canada. We want to reinvest that money from raising corporate taxes back into small businesses, because the empirical evidence suggests that nearly half of the jobs created in this country are created by small businesses, not by large companies. So if they're creating jobs quicker, that's where we need to make the investment. And that's why I think Jack Layton's team is top on this. I mean, we have an excellent platform for small businesses, for job creation, and I think that we are asking for people's support on May 2nd.
Okay, Adam, and then Keith.
Absolutely. On taxes, we need taxes to provide our Medicare and everything else. We know that. But we need our taxes to be used for our benefit, targeted. I haven't seen any plans specific for this riding from any party on what they're going to use our tax dollars for, to create jobs here that's going to lead this riding to self-sufficiency, to help us get out of debt. So I have my own economic action plan after I added up all the election platforms here and seen how much money was spent. So I'd ask for $100 million. 50 of that would be for wages. 50 of that would be for employment and training that we're going to need to employ people and train people and the tools.
Who's going to give you that money?
Well, it would be our money, because if we all united together, it is our money anyway. So we'd be sending the message that we want jobs for us here. And you can work together with anyone. If I was an independent sitting in Ottawa and that came down to the balance of power between an independent, we have a lot more bargaining power than we do with a party sitting in opposition.
So you'd have a price.
We all got a price, I mean, but my price is what's best for the people here that leads to jobs for people here. What I'd like to see these jobs being used for is to make things in New Brunswick. Where's our manufacturing sector? That's gone. We have none. But we can, again, if you look for microgeneration as far as electricity goes, you can find that you can power your house with little turbines from a wood stove. How many people here use wood heat? Well, if you put a kettle on that, it's going to steam, right? One of the initial ways to make electricity was through steam engines. We have a lot of waste that we're not using. So we can refocus our energies to building our place and then lead by example for the rest of the world. We can get self-sufficient if we want to.
Okay.
But it's a fight.
Okay. Keith?
Well, look, it's not up to government to create jobs. It's up to government to create the climate for people to invest and to create jobs. And yes, small business is the backbone of our economy in Canada. There's no question behind that. But we've invested through tax reductions in not only large corporations, but small companies as well. And that's important because those are the people that are creating the jobs in this country. And to say that large corporations don't create jobs is a misnomer. It's not true. They do create jobs. They're reinvesting in capital infrastructure to create more jobs. They're looking at efficiencies. God only knows, at $1.05, our dollar right now, they have to be sufficient to survive. Because if you're going to export outside this country, it's all based in U.S. dollars. They have to be lean and they have to be productive. And we're seeing that right straight across the board.
Okay, I'm at 26 minutes. I don't want to go too much longer. So if you don't mind, here's what I'd like to ask each of you to do. You've got a camera. Give me 35, 40 seconds. Okay, this is running Friday. It's on the net until Monday. So I'll give you 30 to 45 seconds to tell me why the people watching you now should vote for you and not the other guys. And who wants to jump on that? Who wants to start? Jesse says he wants to start. Okay.
Are you going to count with your fingers, Terry?
I'm using my watch. I'm using my watch.
1, 2, 3. Okay. Basically, I asked Randy what I did at the beginning because, we know Jack Layton's someone who'll fight for us. He's a leader we trust. And this isn't about partisan politics. This isn't about Randy or I. Randy's a fantastic person, and I have deep respect for him. This is about what's happening in our country with Stephen Harper's government and about what they've been doing to our country. And I'm asking people that we need to make a clear choice here and stand behind the fight to make sure that Jack Layton replaces Stephen Harper, to make sure that we can get Stephen Harper out of Ottawa for good. And that's what we need in this community. We need to take back the country we love.
What's wrong with Stephen Harper?
We have a government here that is secretive. It has been riddled with scandal. They've been facetious with the Canadian people about the kind of economic strength they have when they don't have that kind of economic strength. They've made poor investments. We've seen that with the fighter jets that were purchased. It's not that the military doesn't need equipment. They certainly do. But that should be done in a way that we consult with the military to make sure that they're getting the appropriate equipment. We shouldn't just buy things out of pocket that are potentially expensive. And we need a government that respects Canadian voices, that respects our economy, and that looks at the evidence that suggests that things like corporate tax cuts don't work instead of just doing it for no good reason at all.
Okay. Do you want to defend your leader before I give you your 45 seconds?
It's pretty obvious if you rank leadership amongst all the parties that Mr. Harper has a proven record. He's managed the economy through very difficult times. We have a plan, and yes, we did go into deficit. But that was necessary. It was an agreement amongst all the G8 countries. We went into deficit, and we're on target to eliminating that deficit by 2014. So we have a steady hand on the wheel here, and we need to continue that because we still do have some challenges before us, and that's as a result of what's going on around us in the world.
Okay, 45 seconds to appeal directly to the voters on why they should vote for you and not one of your competitors.
Well, as I said, it's jobs, the economy. We still have a fragile economy. We recognize that. We see what's going on south of the border in the United States and the mess they're in financially and economically, the huge debts that they have. We see what's going on in Ireland. We see what's going on in Portugal. Those things are all beyond our control and can have an effect on our economy at some point. So we need strong leadership at this time to guide the province, guide the country. And we believe, and I believe, that our party can do that. We're on track to reduce our deficits and eliminate them by 2014. We have a platform going forward that is is manageable, unlike some of the other platforms. I think as a party, the Conservative Party of Canada is the party to lead the country over the next 4 years.
Okay, Randy McKean, why should people vote for you and not your competitors?
Well, first of all, because our competitors, particularly the Conservatives, just aren't being truthful. I mean, they may be on track. They may say they're on track, but the Parliamentary Budget Officer has expressed extreme doubts as to whether they're going to get back to balanced budgets. Again, they may say that they got us through the recession. The fact is that they blew a $12 billion surplus before the recession ever hit. The fact is that when the recession did hit, and which was about 2 weeks after Prime Minister Harper, by the way, was saying we're not going to have a recession and we're never going into deficit, the Prime Minister's advice was to buy now. Good time to buy low, while thousands of Canadians were losing their life savings. Why they should vote for me is because I'll stand up for them. I always have stood up for people. I know what it's like to deal with issues. I know what it's like to deal with disability issues. I know what it's like to deal with 3 children in university who are going through student loans because I can't help them and they're working 2 jobs each. That's why they should vote for me. I will stand up for them and always will.
Louise Como, why should people vote for you?
Because you've got nothing to lose. From a Green Party perspective, we're the party of the future. We're the party that brings confidence, creativity, and hope. We're the party that has a holistic and integrated platform. We have a leader that has character, ethics, and honesty. We are the party that will defend democracy. And we have principles that drive our thinking. Ecological wisdom, true democracy, social justice, nonviolence. These are main principles for us that drive our policies and our thinking. We think it's time. It's time to have Green Party members in Parliament. There are Green Party members in coalitions all over the world. It's been a good thing. It's a good movement. And all that it takes is courage by Frederictonians, and I think we could make some real history here.
I was thinking we might be able to get through this discussion without someone mentioning the word coalition.
We believe in working together, and we believe in collaboration, and we think Parliament should work together.
Adam Scott Ness, you have 45 seconds, give or take a few, to tell people why they should vote for you.
Well, I stand for the party, none of the above, because that's why I'm running as an independent. I have independent thoughts, like all of the residents of this riding. Independently, I think that if I vote for 3 of the 4 other people here, that I'm going to end up paying more for gas. Independently, I think that if I vote for 4 of the other people here, we're going to lose more in our province than, unfortunately, we have lost already. I also believe that our jobs are going overseas, and I have seen why that is. And I understand that because I've worked in that environment. I have seen our premiers tell me, and everyone that lives here, that we cannot afford to have another day off. Before you tell the people that are working in your economy supporting your paychecks, I would suggest that you take a walk in their shoes. So I've walked in these shoes. I know the talk. I know the sales pitches. I know what is done to our seniors when they're called on their phones because I've seen that. This is the province that Frank built. So if you want to, you can send Ottawa a message. Can you hear us now?
Thank you so much. And candidates, best of luck to you on the rest of your campaigns and on Monday. It's been a pleasure meeting you all and having this conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, it all worked out well, didn't it? No punches were thrown. No one was ejected from the contest.
We just talked about the hockey game. That's it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.